everywhere you go, you're going to find good people and bad people. It doesn't matter. Yeah, in every culture, in every skin color, in every language, there's good people and bad people. The language and culture and skin color are not good or bad. That's just part of an identity. But it's how a person lives their life. Like I know a lot of Indian people that are really no good, sitting in prison for molesting children, for beating up women. Yeah, and a lot of them can't even speak their own language. And this is you know this goes to show you it's just because you're a certain skin color or whatever, it doesn't make you good or bad. It's how you live your life. Another thing is I know a lot of people that do speak their language, but they're not good people. Yeah. So just because if you're Lakota and and you can speak Lakota, that doesn't make you good. Yeah, it just means you can do that, but that doesn't necessarily mean you're good. I When I was still living on the reservation, I had a cousin, and I won't say his name out of respect for my relatives. This guy was he's much older than me, so it's in the Teoshbai way that he's my cousin. And the Teoshbai way, that's an extended family. And the way it works is, let me explain this real quick before I come back to the story. The way a Teoshbai works is that your mother and all her sisters are, all those ladies are your mothers. And their men are your fathers. And their children are your brothers and sisters. Yeah? And your mother's brothers are your uncles. And their women are your aunties. And their children are your cousins. That's your mother's side. Okay? On your father's side, your father and all his brothers they're all your fathers too. And all the women from these men, the wives, the partners, they're all your other mothers. And again, the children from those marriages and unions, those are your brothers and sisters. Your father's sisters are your aunties, and their husbands are your uncles, and their children are your cousins. That's how that works. Yeah. Anyway, this guy, I have to really be careful because sometimes I try to keep a person's name, personal, private, and then it just slips out. So I'm try not to do that because I don't mean to put him down or anything. Yeah, I'm just telling you something that happened to show to you a point. When I still lived in South Dakota, this guy, my cousin, he was really, really nice. He was friendly. Yeah, he always came. When he visited our family, he was always nice and friendly and courteous, and he really had a lot of knowledge concerning our Teoshpai, my mother's Teoshpai. And so I really grew to, really honor this guy. And he's lived a rough life. When I was a teenager, this guy was an alcoholic. He would come to the house, all dirty and greasy face and messy hair, and hair hanging over really bad, and then he would be saying, "Hey, you got 25 cents I could borrow?" And no, sorry, I don't have any. Okay, and he'd take off. And he spent time in behind bars, and I don't mean the bars you drink from. And he spent some time there because of a crime he committed. So he's really lived a hard life. And as he got older, he straightened up and became kind of religious and Christian. He had a big family, a lot of kids. Anyway, he was always involved with activities for the children. And he even started some too, yeah, for the Indian kids at the school. He started a powwow club, and he really got things going, and he was kind of like a community, uh, he's like a starter. You know what I mean? He if somebody gets an idea or he gets an idea, and he doesn't just talk about it. He does something about it. So he starts things, yeah, that are good things for the community, for the children. So I really grew to honor this guy, yeah, and always nice to see him. He has a really unique voice. Lakota is his first language, and so I always honored him, yeah, and once I moved to Germany, out of the blue, he sent me an email, and the Tioshpe, see, he's from my mother's side of the family. That Tioshpe, they call it Wakia Kiza, which means fights the thunder. He named his son that name, yeah. And I asked my mom. I said, years ago, I said, I asked my mom. I said, did he get permission from everybody in the family to do that? Because that's kind of a honored name, yeah. And my mom said, well, he never talked to me. He said, so I always remembered that, yeah. Anyway, he wrote me an email that really surprised me. And he said that, because see, on my website it says I'm from the Wakia Kiza Tioshpaye. And so he wrote an email and he said, how much money is the Tioshpaye going to receive from the sale of your books? And I'm like, huh? Where's that coming from? Yeah, and it kind of confused me there. I had to look twice to make sure that this was actually the same guy. Yeah, and so I reread the email really slowly, and I said, "Hey, this is so opposite of what he was like in person." And I was like, "Why is he, saying, just because on my website I say I'm from Wakia Kiza Tioshpaye, and I see I sell Lakota language books. I have a Lakota language book and a Lakota spirituality book, and I sell them online. That's for educational purposes, and so he was saying he was trying to accuse me of using that name to sell my books, and excuse me. If you look at the title of the book, it says Chante Etoha Owogalake, speaking from the heart. It doesn't say Wakia Kiza. It doesn't say that at all. And just because I say I'm from the Wakia Kiza Tioshpaye, that just means I'm from there. It doesn't mean, that I'm obligated to pay money from there. If I say I'm from Dupree, South Dakota, does that mean that everything I sell, that a percentage of that has to go to that town? Do you see what I mean? That's stupid. That's really, really stupid. And I couldn't believe that my cousin was talking like this. I always saw him to be a smart guy. And, because he really talks good, especially about cultural things. He really talks good. And so this really shocked me that, he was saying that I should be giving the money that I'm making from my books to the Tioshpaye, just because I say I'm from there. And so what I just said here, I said that back to him. I said, I also said that I'm from the Cheyenne River Sioux tribe. Should I give money to the Cheyenne River Sioux tribe for that too? I say I'm from South Dakota. Should I give money to the state of South Dakota too? I said, what kind of logic is that? Yeah, and then I fired back because that kind of pissed me off. So I fired back and I said, you named your son after, this the guy that the Tioshba is named after. I said, did you get everybody's permission to do that? I said, because when your son was born, I said, I asked my mother if he asked you if that was okay to do that. My mother said she never heard anything. She didn't know that you had named your son that. So that's telling me you didn't get permission. I said, if I was going to name my child that name, I would have talked to everybody first in the Tioshba, every adult. I would have went around and talked to them and say, is it okay if I name my son this name? Because it's a special name. I said, but you didn't. And what does your son do? Your son sells marijuana and he went to prison for 2-3 years? In my opinion, I said, your son is dragging that powerful name through the mud. Your son is shitting on a very good name. And as for me, I'm the only one that's saving the language on our reservation. I think I'm giving way more honor to Wakina Kiza than your son is. So I said, before you continue to talk shit like that, I said, maybe you better tell your son to change his name, because your son is not living up to that name. And so I don't claim to, have that name, but I'm living up to it. I'm honoring that man by saving Lakota language. And what does your son do? He sells drugs and goes to prison. So after that, he kind of got mouthy in the email. So I just blocked it. Every time, I just said, hell with this guy. I couldn't believe he would communicate like that. Yeah, that really, really, it's like I get away from the reservation, and now they're saying what they really want to say to me. They can't say it to my face, but when I am far away, then they have the nerve to talk shit about me. But they couldn't do it when I was there. That's cowardly, and that's cowardice in my opinion. You see, this goes to show you that here's a guy, his first language is Lakota, and he has a lot of knowledge in Lakota culture. But yet, he attacked me. Yeah, and it really surprised me. And my mother was still alive during that time, so I shared that information with her, and she was really, really angry at him. And she said the same thing that I said. She said, "Why didn't he talk to you when you were here?" She said, "He's not a man." She said, "He's a coward." And so this is a full-blood Lakota. His first language is Lakota, but that doesn't mean he's good. Do you see what I mean? See, the reason why I say this is because there's a lot of Indians on the reservation that you always see this native pride, Lakota pride, proud to be Lakota, and then under it they'll say, yeah, only full-blood, supposed to be speaking the language, and full-blood this and full-blood that. That's all racism. That is racism. That's not what our ancestors are about. Yeah, that is total racism. That's communicating from the skin color. That's not communicating from the sacred center. Yeah, so that's the reason why I mention these kind of things. That when you run into, for those of you who are not Indian, and you run into things on the internet, you have to be careful. So there's a lot of Indians who are racist out there, and some of them don't even realize they're being racist. It's because that's all they knew. They must have learned it from someplace. And normally you learn things at home. Even when there's bad parenting involved, you're still learning something, and it's not good. Yeah? So you see, it's not the skin color, it's not the language, it's not the religion or whatever. It's how a person is inside of themselves. I really, really need to drive that in.